Good evening. Can you hear me?
All right, I can hear you. Good evening.
All right. So we are live on tonight. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, so we're live now. Welcome, join us everyone tonight as we discuss Chiquitha Mayberry's book, Broken Pieces. We are excited to take this discussion a little deeper on night 2, right?
Night
So,
two.
night 2, let's go. So, we're going to give y'all a little bit of time to come on. See some people joining now. All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And we're just going to get right into it. You ready?
I am. We did our
This
good
is gonna,
talking on that first one.
right. We did all that good talking. Literally, we were going at it for about
Oh my
15 minutes.
God.
I mean, it was a great conversation. We were really doing some things. So we're gonna try to do it again. We're gonna try to do it again. But
Yeah.
anyways, welcome everyone to night 2. I'm happy to be hosting this interview tonight with my good friend, my good sis, Chiquitha Mayberry. She just completed her book Broken Pieces. It's not out yet, but you can definitely look at the link below and grab the pre-order. You can do your pre-order. Just go to the link below. It's open and you can just grab that right now. All right. Let's just dive in. So, as we were talking earlier, we were talking some into your personal motivation and inspiration behind the book. So, let's just begin at the beginning. What moment or season of life first planted the seed for this book?
Well, the thing about this book has always been in my heart. Before any of my children books or anything else, I knew that I wanted to write this book. But like I shared before, I knew it was important for me to take my time with something as beautiful as like, oh my God, that sounds like a good topic and everything else. But I wanted to take my time to experience inner healing.
Sure.
Because when you are sharing your story and you're experiencing, trauma, you have to go back and maybe even relive some stuff. You want to make sure that it doesn't put you in a traumatic state to where it puts you in a darker place. And
Yes.
so I was very intentional of making sure I was ready to walk in full forgiveness and everything else, and not walk into where I'm trying to point the finger or walk
Sure.
around angry, or but
Sure.
just walk in the fullness of what I wanted for my life and what I want for others to experience when reading this. So
Yeah.
this is something that has been on my heart to do, and I'm just really excited to finally get a chance for you guys to see it and just to join me on the journey.
Perfect. So, was there a specific breaking point for you that made you realize that your broken pieces weren't just private pain, but public testimony waiting to be told?
I think for me, and I always say, I my children's book was intentionally done on my birthday, but I knew
Sure.
this book with me turning 40 was something huge. A lot of people do know, and I'm very open and transparent about it with my health. There were a lot of moments too I didn't know if I was going to necessarily like 40, like oh my gosh, like I made it to 40. When
Yeah,
you're faced with a lot of health challenges, it makes you think about life. It puts you in
absolutely.
the scope of reviewing just everything that you've done. And I knew that it
Absolutely.
was important for me to finally go ahead and release this. For one, because I started having conversations with individuals and they were just sharing their experience. So I
Sure.
knew that it was time for me to share it, not just in conversation, because a lot of people do know, but it was important for me to share it in the sense of I don't live on the same street as that person. I'm
Yeah.
not in the same country as that person, but I knew I wanted
Right.
to find a way to create a conversation that was so needed, and it's really past due
Yeah.
for a lot of individuals to walk in that inner healing, that childhood healing, and
Sure.
especially with this particular book with father issues and how it really does scope and it affects
Hmm.
your upbringing. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You actually talked about in the first interview, you talked about trauma like being multilingual, right? Having many different languages. Can you give a little bit of understanding to what you were saying? I thought that that was so good. How trauma has different voices. Can you kind of speak to that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Listen, I think we sometimes go into comparing traumas, like my trauma is bigger than yours. And the truth about it is that it speaks different languages. And we see this happen a lot of times when individuals experience traumatic moments in their life, to where I may experience something, but my response was different. And I think that we have to realize that my trauma may speak a different language, but the objective of trauma is to stop me, to make me feel less
Very
than,
good.
excuse me, to make me question my worth, to
Yep.
make me feel like I'm not worth anything, to make me
Sure.
second guess, to make me
Sure.
self-sabotage. So the thing about it is, the thing with trauma is like a bullet.
Mm.
Once it's released, you don't know who it's going to land on. Like
Very good.
it can be aimed, but at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, it can't land on anyone else. And so the effects of it, it may look different for everyone,
Yeah.
but that in itself is that we all experience what it wants to do, and it is to muzzle us, it's to self-sabotage, it's to try to hold us back, it's
Yeah.
try to make us even feel as if we are not worthy to walk the earth. And
Yeah.
that's when I started realizing that this thing, because I was, dealing with myself. And I know we talk a lot about self sabotage,
Yeah.
but the truth of the matter is that self sabotage came at an early age.
Yeah.
It was like I'll sabotage my joy or whatever else
Mm.
because I don't feel like I'm good enough for it. And
Yeah.
I think that is something that as adults, or even as children, that we have to make sure that we realize that self sabotage doesn't just happen. That is something that was groomed. And when we think
Mm.
about trauma, we have to realize that we are grooming a lot of things, personality traits, character
Yeah.
traits, and everything else,
Yeah.
but we're allowing it to be groomed as if the trauma can actually water a seed. Like
Mm.
it's so confusing
Yeah.
but that's what it goes into. Like our trauma lies to us. It tries to convince us that we're good when it's like, baby, you're not.
Yes. 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 And so many people, they carry brokenness silently. What gave you the courage to write about yours so openly?
I think for me, it was more so this fits my personality
Okay.
now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I wanted to let people know why I cherish who I am so much, because
Mm-hmm.
I had to fight to get to this place.
Yeah.
And so I felt that I owed it to everyone to bring them into the reason why I'm so like, no, it has not always been this way. Outspoken a little bit,
Yeah.
but as far as like the fullness of what individuals are seeing now to this right now, it
Yeah.
took me some time to get here. And I
Yeah.
knew that I couldn't just give you how I am right now, the present, without giving my origin story. I
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
give
Yeah.
my genesis of what I went through and
Yes.
how and why I fight every day, because we know that the enemy wants to, destroy us
Oh
every
yeah.
day. He
Oh
like
yeah.
so he wants to do those things, and
Oh
I
yeah.
knew that it was something that I owed to those who have been supporting me and those who have been on this journey with me. It was important for me to bring them into, hey, this is my genesis moment. So the
Yeah.
reason why I push others so hard, I encourage others so hard, is because I've been in that place. I know what it feels like. I know when it's coming. I know all those things. And
Yeah.
so I wanted to let people know, like, this is why I go so hard with the girl pick up the phone conversations and
Yes.
all
Yes.
that stuff, because
Yes.
it's true. Like
Yeah.
I shared last night, I wish that there was someone who was just there just to have a conversation with me. Like,
Yeah.
girl, pick up the phone. I know it's hard. Like, I know,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
because I think sometimes when we make presentations of how to heal, we present perfection first.
Very good. Yes.
And so it made me feel like I'm never going to obtain that level of healing, because you make me feel
Absolutely.
like I got to be perfect in order to. And
Yeah.
so I
Yeah. Yeah.
felt
Yeah.
like, to me, it was like, oh, I'm definitely not, And so I think
Yeah.
that was important for me to give, to show the imperfection, and to
Yeah.
show like how far I have come, and how I get to this place, got into this place, and why I
Sure.
fight so hard to stay in this
Yeah.
place and continue to grow.
Yeah, and I think oftentimes it is perfection that causes us to not put things forth, because we're waiting for that perfect, that perfect moment, waiting for that perfect opportunity, and sometimes it is our perfection that delays our productivity, right? And so the fact that you were able to push beyond perfection to say, hey, you were almost like you became who you needed in your journey, right? So as you're now writing the book and doing your reels and things like that, you're speaking to you, the you who you were, that person can come through as a triumphant testimony, of what you've gone through. So I think that is amazing. What do you feel like God was saying to you while you wrote this book? Was there a divine assignment that you sensed while journeying through creating this wonderful masterpiece?
Yeah. Me, I'm a very visual person.
Sure.
And so I just kept seeing and hearing, like when I would dream, like I would wake up like out of like conversations with God and him just telling me like finish it and do it. It's time. But it was almost as if he would allow me to see myself in a almost like a huddle, talking to other women, but in front of them were the little girl. And I think that, a lot of times, like when you just busy about life, you just like, sure. I know God is speaking, but I wasn't still enough
sure
to focus on what he wanted me to do. I'm like, okay, God, of course, absolutely, I'll write another children's book.
Yeah.
But I knew that he was bringing me back to what he initially started to talk to me about years ago.
Sure.
And so he brought me back to in remembrance of a lot of things that I experienced, but he also brought me back as to the reason why. And then not just that, he also brought me back into the reason of what my voice is and how I have the ability of gathering women and everything. So I know that God is very strategic when he's telling us to do something, but it was almost like he was affirming me to let me know that I've been qualified, but I'm even more qualified now because I intentionally did the inner work and everything else.
Yeah.
Of course, with his prompting, but also because of my own personal desires. I wanted to just be better for myself. And so, and I think it was almost as if, I'm a first grade teacher, but I felt as if every day it was like God was meeting me in that classroom and he was putting before me, like, look at how you're teaching them to become better. And I want you to do the same thing in your writing with this book. And so, I think, I can go on and on about those experiences and everything, but, it was very important for me to, even in the moments that I was still and I had time to think, it was always almost as if God was telling me, like pushing me, like, don't give up. Keep going. This is the time. This is necessary. And it would just be like random things, like people say, their father wounds or something like that. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, I'm like, I just can't get some coffee. Why is this person talking about this? Like, what?
Sure.
I had to stop thinking like, oh, that's just a mere coincidence. But that was like God putting before me, like, Chiquitha, like, stop, listen. I'm going to keep, being in your ear and talk to you more and more until this is done. And even more, even once I felt like it was done, I went back and added some more, and I said, God, I realized that even with you pushing me, I still put myself in a box because I'm thinking like, that's good enough. And God is like, but there's more. And, it's like, sometimes God will have you eating your own words. I remember you always telling everybody like, there's more.
Yes.
So there's more. There's more for you to add. And I had to be comfortable with that because a lot of times, when you're doing something as huge as this, it can become very, scary. And so I think it was, for me, it was like, I felt like every day I'm going to keep fighting until it's done. So
So do you feel like you healed before you wrote it or you healed during the writing process?
Both. Depending on the chapter.
Sure.
Depending on the chapter, because some days I'm like, oh, I could pull that card right out and play and do that, But it depending on the chapter, because this is making me face a lot of things that the reason why I think and why I see is because of what I experienced. And so it challenged me in my own thinking, like being okay with saying, no, that's not the way you were taught this way, but that wasn't the correct way of thinking. And so it put me in a good perspective of how to handle relationships, how to be patient, and the reason why I'm not as patient, as a person, and I think that a lot of that just became out of trying to hurry up to prepare for what's next, because I don't know what's next, and I don't want to be caught off guard because I moved around so much. And so in that, I had to always address the root of why I do what I do. So all of it is almost like it's actively working and everything else. And so, but it's almost like it all works together. Yeah.
Sure. And so from your writing, what do you hope the reader will confront, release, embrace after reading and processing Broken Pieces?
I think for me, it would be what I had to address. I had to address my pain. And And I know sometimes we live in a society where everything has to be perfect.
Yeah.
Everything has to be filtered life, social media life. But I had to address my pain. I had to address the pain that I suffered, the pain that I experienced. And then just like I said, with trauma, that it speaks different languages, and then go into what language did I pick up from my trauma?
Sure.
What did I become because of my trauma?
Sure.
And so that is what I aspire for everyone to get. That this is not just a book about Chiquitha, but this is our story. This is our journey. I'm just starting the conversation. And my vision is that I pray that everyone who reads this book continues to have the conversation with themselves, so that they know that they owe it to themselves to receive a level of healing, not just to be perfect, but to be better.
Yeah.
And just to live life in the fullness of how they're supposed to live. And I think sometimes we allow our trauma to hold us back and make us feel like we're not worthy of the joy. And I think that was
Absolutely.
huge for me, because I've been a very, laughable person, but that inner joy is something that I aspire for everyone to get. Like, if I could bottle it up and just, but I can't do the work, but for everyone else. And so that's what this book is about. Throughout the book, I have it to where it is a workbook. It's not just sharing story. It is a workbook. You are doing the work. I did the work. Now you do the work.
I love that.
So that was mine. That was, that's just really all God, because I think for me, it was like, as I would write it out and everything else, I would see different things him saying. Now ask them this question. So it was almost like a conversation that the Father was having with me, but it was a conversation that he wanted to have with everyone others, And so I just think that this is a piece. And if I was to sum it, I would say that the sum of this piece is, to where, of course, it's called Broken Pieces, but I feel like this is a conversation between the father and daughters, or the father and sons.
Yeah. I think that is so beautiful, and that's so necessary in our day and age, right? Where we have so many single families and so many people that are trying to heal that inner child. Right. And so even as you were speaking to the huddle and the little girl, sometimes even in our lives, we have to forgive ourselves. Right. But sometimes we judge ourselves as if we knew then what we know now. Yeah. Right. And so journeying through that process helped you to see that there were some things that you just didn't know, some choices you made because you didn't, we kind of sit in the seat of the adult and judge the child for the decisions and the consequences and all these things. And we don't realize that is just delaying our deliverance. Is delaying our freedom, because we're not even seeing it properly. Right. So if the younger version of you, the one living through the pain, could read this book, what would she think, or what would she say?
She would smile. She would smile and she would say, "Thank you." Because, and I'm not gonna cry. Woo!
Whoa. Yeah. Woo. Yeah.
You did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You did it. You took all of that. When those moments of questioning your worth and questioning what to do, what would life look like you did it. And I think that, and I share a lot in the book and talk about my childhood trauma, and people know the adventures of Abigail and how it comes from a place of me not having shelter, but how much that affected a little girl's self-esteem.
Sure.
And so, yeah, that's she would say, I'm proud of you. You did it.
Yeah.
You took those dark moments, those dark spaces.
Yeah. Those
levels. And I think if I have one chapter, it says the word bigger than insecurity. That's how I felt. If I can find a word bigger than self-sabotage, that's how I felt.
Yeah.
If I felt a word bigger than abandonment, that's how I felt.
Yeah.
And I always say, I'm a visual person, but also I'm realizing like now, because I'm, you have to dig a lot, and when you dig up a
Sure.
lot, you got to be, okay with facing it, so
Mm-hmm.
that you can give God the glory out of it, of course. But
Absolutely.
also realizing that not everyone makes it out, not everyone makes it to the
Whew.
other side, and so that every day is something that I find myself while cleaning my house, like random
Yeah.
moments, while
Yeah.
washing my kids' clothes, that I made it out on the other side. And it's
Wow.
not into to judge my mother or anyone else on my family, but
Sure.
it's like something as small as that, because there was moments to where I didn't imagine cleaning my house, washing my kids' clothes,
My God.
and so it's like the
Yeah.
little things come from such a huge place
Yeah.
of trauma, of disappointment,
Yeah.
uncertainty. And that's the thing about it. It's like people walk around in the earth just uncertain so much.
Yes. Yes.
And the realization is that when they finally make it, they just feel as if I'm gonna go about life. But then in those little moments, you don't realize how big that seed was and
Yeah.
how much it brought you into just a doubt. Like, I'll never be able, like, my kids, I'm like, well, we gonna clean, you gotta clean, you gotta mean you washing the walls, but it was moments to where I never imagined that I would be able to tell my kids, like, baby, you got to wash them walls. That's how we clean. So something as
Yeah.
small as
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
something I never even dreamed of even
My God.
saying.
Yeah.
This is how you clean it. And so yeah, but Jesus Christ, like
That's what this is about. The people seeing the inspiration and the motivation
yeah,
right behind Broken Pieces and how you made it out. I think that was so strong what you said, that some people don't make it out. And I
yeah,
think giving them the tools and equipping, that young boy, that young girl, even as a grown man, to be able to journey to that place is almost like freedom, right? Where you're able to be recalibrated, you're able to be reintegrated back into the wholeness and the original thought of God
yeah,
concerning you, right?
yeah,
Because you've done the work. You went and dug up the pieces, you went and dug up the broken, and put yourself, with the help of the Lord, back together. So I love that. And I think that little girl would definitely be saying, thank you for speaking up for me. My God, like, thank you for not letting my story just die in a grave, right? Thank you for not just burying what I went through and making it look like a broken, bitter woman, but you came out to be a beautiful, blossoming queen that moves in excellence, right? That thrives in creativity, right? On the other side of my brokenness is my beauty. On
yeah,
the other side of my brokenness is glory, right? And so I love how you talked about just pushing through that journeying space and how hard it was to even undo that. So, what has been the most unexpected fruit of your obedience in writing and releasing this message to the world?
This week, I've received a lot of text messages, and I honestly, I thought people just deleted my number because they stopped talking to me. I'm gonna be honest, I was like, well, you know, and and inboxes and like, and I'm like, well, I just thought, just because life happens and it's
Sure.
respectful,
Yeah.
I keep the same energy. I still love everyone the same, but
Yeah.
it was a testimony of people sharing with me, like, I'm so proud of you, because
Yeah.
I've never been one to shy away from my story, but for them to say, I'm so proud of what you're doing and what you're becoming,
Yeah.
and that you stayed on the journey that you told me that you were going on, and that
Yeah.
you didn't give up. So these are people who were knitted in the beginning stages of me finding my identity, and for them to
Sure.
see me continue to stay true to what I promised and
Yeah.
to those conversations. So that has been a true reward, because I never look for the applause
Hmm.
of others, but it felt good for those who had been there before, mom scope and all that other thing else. Like, I used to have all these things, these platforms, and
Sure.
for them to say, you are still going strong. Like,
Yeah.
they know the setbacks, they know everything else that I experienced.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You are a testament of true resilience. So just hearing that inspiration and them thanking me and even saying, I know that I was your mentor, but now you are mentoring me. I'm watching
Wow.
you live
Wow.
out loud. I'm watching, and so I'm
Yeah.
inspired by you. And so you were my inspiration. Not to say that they're not, because they're still my inspiration. But for
Yeah.
them to turn that around, it lets me know that when it comes to that ability of just mentoring and counseling and everything else, I feel a level of gratitude, of course, obedience, but also just like God is just so good. And to just have those individuals coming back around and saying like they're proud of me and how I have stayed authentic to myself,
Sure.
how I've not lost myself, but gained a new um, mantle in a sense
Yeah.
of who I am.
Sure.
Just hearing those conversations and receiving those roses, and
Okay.
those flowers and
Yeah.
everything else. So that was
Yeah.
really huge for me. So that was really
Yeah.
huge.
That's beautiful. So we get into some of the topics of the book because I don't want to be too long tonight. But the title Broken Pieces implies emotional fragmentation. We talked about that. But how does the ache for affection, one of your topics of your book is the ache for affection, how does that begin to break us often without us even realizing it?
Yeah, a lot of times we long for something that we don't really know. I think when we think about affection, we always go into the relationship and the understanding of thinking that it's more so of a desire between a man and woman. But when we think about affection as a child, and you never received that affection from a father, and we're
Sure.
talking directly about little girls, we can leave it up to the world to help us to define what it means to be affectionate or to receive affection. And so it's a longing, aching to receive the affection from a father and never receiving it. So you'll just go ahead and just, I'll just take it from whoever gives it or whoever comes along. I use the
Yeah.
example to where we have to be careful when we don't receive levels of affection from when we were younger. It's like walking around with a blank canvas and giving everyone the paintbrush and they just paint whatever they want. And we have to walk around with it. So we're
Yeah.
allowing them, their words, to make us
Yeah.
see that that's affection. So
Yeah.
it's like them labeling, oh, that's
Sure.
affection. Me yelling at you, oh, that's me showing affection, and everything like that's me loving
Yeah.
you. And we have to
Yeah.
be
Yeah. Yeah.
careful about that, especially as little girls who don't grow
Sure.
up having that in the household with their father, receiving it from
Yeah.
the mother and
Yeah.
those who care about us. But let's get this understanding. When God knew the importance of having a father, the voice of a father in the household. It's,
Sure.
and so we're never going to get away from the way that he built the idea of family.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
he, so that is something that we can never feel as if a woman can fill those shoes, because there is something about the voice of a man, of a
Absolutely.
father, that is
Absolutely.
necessary. So we can
Yeah.
never get away from that. I don't care what people want to do now, but we can never get away from the fact that the voice of having a father in that
Yeah.
household
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
something that is almost as big as it's bigger than a microphone, it's
Yeah.
bigger than a speaker, but
Absolutely.
it cultivates and shapes you and help you throughout life.
Absolutely. The voice of the father brings affirmation and validation right to who you are. So without that, you like you said, you wander and you look for other people to give you that, to tell you who you are, right? To label you, and you have the blank canvas because you don't know. And so if you say, "Oh, I'm a duck," okay, I'm a duck, but I could be a bird. I could be, I could be a lion. And you just said,
Yeah.
well, you got eyes. We all got eyes, but you know what I'm saying? So you actually start to even find yourself in circles and places that you don't belong, right? Because you did not receive that affection. So going further into that affection piece, what do you feel like the difference between affection and attention is? Because I feel like a lot of times people get that misconstrued.
Yeah, I think the thing of what the dangers of when seeking attention, and this is when we are trying to seek attention, I talk about how in moments of trying to seek attention, you're trying to seek affirmation. But that attention, you have those kids that like they're always trying to like seek attention, so they do like
Sure.
they misbehave and they do different things, but they're trying to seek attention because the affirmation wasn't there.
Very good.
So if I would have given you the affirmation, you wouldn't have to walk around doing crazy things, off the wall things, misbehaving in school. And because I do work with kids and I meet them with empathy first,
Sure.
And so I do the same thing with adults. I meet you with empathy first because I'm pretty sure there is an area that you're lacking. So I need to address that first instead of addressing the behavior. And so sometimes we want to address the root of what's really going on. We try to address this up here, but down here is the fruit of why I'm acting like this, why I'm mismanaging, why I perceive and why I talk and why I behave in this way. And so when we are doing that and we're not meeting individuals or seeing it with it, that is a lack to where they weren't affirmed. They're missing that line conversation that you are good enough. You don't have to act like this. You don't have to seek my validation or seek my attention. And it's almost like it's almost like a red sign that goes around like across your head, like you don't have to do this. Like you don't have to behave like this because I affirmed you. I affirmed you enough. I spoke to these areas, and so when we see that happen, it really does play a role in a lot of characteristics, that individuals make.
Yeah, because without that affirmation or without that validation, you walk around empty, right? And you walk around seeking somebody to fill you up. But if you got that at home, if your daddy told you was pretty, if your daddy told you look good, you wouldn't be out here looking at bozo, when you wouldn't be sitting in the car with somebody whooping you upside your head, right? Because you got that. You don't deserve that. You understood your value. You understood, who you were and what you were created to do and to be from that father level. And without that, you seek that because as daughters, that's just something that we crave. We crave, that affirmation. We crave that affection. So that's really good. In what ways does the ache for affection drive us towards performance-based love? And how do we begin to break that cycle?
Listen, we overperform.
Listen.
We will put on the nose, paint our face, and everything else like a clown.
Yes.
Just sitting around waiting for someone to tell us, oh, that was good, baby. Oh, you good enough. I'm going to sell you the popcorn. I'm going to pour you a drink. I'm going to do everything I can do so I can hear that one thing that I never heard from my father.
Yeah.
And so that performance base, it plays so much to where it tires you out, but then you don't know what's happening because, again, you didn't address the root.
Yeah.
But you're walking around here, you on the little bicycle, you're doing everything else, you're doing everything, And so we have it to where when that performance base, and I just finished like going over this part in the book when I was digging back through it. And I talked about, I named everything as to what my trauma taught me. My trauma taught me how to do all these things. And performance is something that a lot of people don't think about, but your trauma taught you this. In that chapter, it's taught what my trauma taught me. Woo! And the thing about it is like, how do you learn from something that's unhealthy? You can't. It's impossible.
Yeah.
You pick up the toxic trait.
Dysfunction.
You pick up the dysfunction. You pick up the bad seeds. You pick up the bad advice. You pick all those things up. And so that is something that we have to realize that my trauma taught me to overly perform. My trauma told me to seek that attention and to seek that validation from someone who can't even give me validation. I'm seeking the validation from someone who don't even know. You know? And so that's what our culture, that's what the world teaches us. We see it all the time. We're on social media right now looking for validation. Like and share. Reshare my all these things. Even in
Absolutely.
that, it's a language. And so that trauma teaches us to say these things like I need a certain amount of votes or likes and everything else so I can feel good about myself. But I tell people all the time, I'm going to share the video. I'm going to reshare the video. I don't care how many people see it, how many people like it. As long as I'm being obedient and doing what I'm supposed to do, that I had to fight to get to that place though. Because that was in my mind, like no one is liking my post. But it was always, it didn't have to do anything with the people. It had to do with me. Because I was still seeking a validation from people that I don't even know. Please like my post. Please share my, like, it's like, wait. And we have to realize like how that is even in itself a toxic behavior.
Absolutely.
So like go back online. Let me see how many people like my post. Let me see how many people, and it's kind of like, no, you're seeking validation, which don't get me wrong. It's amazing to share and it's important because you want to see, and everything else, because this is a part, it's our culture communication. I get that.
Yeah.
But to the point to where it affects your mood, it's not good.
Yeah.
You know,
And so what I hear you saying is like, because you don't receive that from God, as the father, because oftentimes when we don't have the father in the home, we don't see God right. And so even though God is in many of our lives as believers, sometimes our view is distorted even at that level, right?
yeah.
Can you speak to how our view of God can be distorted because of that lack of affection?
I call it the person, place, thing.
Hmm.
The person, the place, the thing.
Hmm.
I'm looking for a person to validate me, a place to validate me, and something to validate me.
Yeah.
Not one time did you talk to God.
Wow.
Not one time did you go to God. Person, place, thing.
Wow.
And we have to be careful of that. Because
Yeah.
if we don't get fulfillment from the person, we don't get fulfillment from the place or a gathering, whatever it is.
Yeah.
The thing, when we see like the thing, like I went to go and buy this and it didn't bring fulfillment to me. So, when we see, different things like that. And so you're looking for validation from everything and trying to seek it from everything that's not qualified to give it to you.
Not qualified. That's so good.
It's not qualified.
That's so good.
Not qualified to give it to it.
It didn't create you. How is it qualified to speak to what it didn't create? Right? We go to so many things but the creator to ask it who we are. That's almost like having an Apple phone going and talking to somebody with Samsung. They can't tell me how to use, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
that's not even the origin of where it came from.
Yeah.
So oftentimes we miss those points in our own development because we don't seek the creator.
Yes, absolutely. I always talk about, how my grandfather loved to go to the meat store. And at the time, I know it was Moo Anoint, but how much I hated the smell of the store. Like I absolutely, like even to this day, I do not like walking into meat. Like, nope, I'm all right. But I realized how much in those moments to where I was willing to sacrifice my comfortability to be in his presence. I'm like, you know what? And it took me some time. I had to journey through that. And I started realizing, like, I was like, I sacrificed what I didn't like.
Man.
I sacrificed what, oh, God, even just thinking about it, like, oh, no.
Yeah.
But I sacrificed my personal feelings.
Yeah.
To be with him. And that's what we have to realize, that's what it's about. I'm going to sacrifice my level of comfort. I'm going to sacrifice everything so that I can get, you see what I'm saying? So that I can be with him.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes we are so wrapped in this thing to where we feel like, oh no, I don't have to do that. But if God told you that you're going to only get what you need by doing this, how long are you going to keep revisiting the person, the place, and thing before you just get tired and realize like you're going to keep trying to fill everything with it, which is what I always say a lot of times happen with people who hoard. Like you keep trying to order stuff, you keep trying to order deliveries and try to fill a void that is never qualified to fill it.
Yeah.
Never. Yeah. I don't care what happens, what you get is not going to qualify.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was talking to somebody about that today, about how, addictions can be, like you said, multilingual, right? It can be an addiction to food. It can be an addiction to shopping. It can be addiction to drugs. We try to say just drug addiction, but there are different types of addictions, and addictions only come from a lack of affection. They come from a lack of that, affirmation. It comes from that void within that you're trying to fill with something that does not qualify to fill you up. It's almost like trying to drink soda to get to relieve your thirst. You need some water.
Yeah. That's the thing that happens a lot of times, that we try to self-diagnose, and it's like you're not the doctor, you're not the nurse, you're not the triage, you're not qualified. And I think sometimes we feel like, and we do this when we have something going on with our bodies. The first thing we want to do is go WebMD instead of going directly to the, like, okay, now I am guilty of it too. Not gonna lie. But then it gets to a point to like, no, I probably should go to the emergency room for this. Right. But I think we have to get out of trying to figure things out by ourselves. When God lets us know, you don't have to do this alone. You don't have to heal by yourself. You don't have to go through this by yourself. And I think we have to get to the point where we say enough is enough. I cannot do this without him. So therefore, I need to become reliant on the source. He is the source. Yeah. So yeah.
That's so good. One of the other chapters of your book is about when absence becomes identity. You talk about absence not just as loss, but as formation. Can you explain how absence becomes a part of one's identity?
Absolutely. I think in the chapter, the absence becomes your identity. It moves you into to where you start trying to cope with what you do have instead of
Mm,
realizing that you are deserving of the truth.
sure.
And I think that we try to trick ourselves into thinking that, you know what, this is good enough. If you
Yeah.
drive up to a restaurant and or to a drive-through rather, and you order a Big Mac. I haven't eaten a Big Mac in I don't know how long. But if you order it, you remember what it first looked like, how it tasted, and
Yeah.
everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And you get your order, you sit in your car, you open it up, and all of a sudden it's a half of a sandwich.
Mm.
They give you half of a drink. You used to where it should be filled, and you know that the cars in front of you receive the correct order, they receive everything correct. But in our minds, we would try to trick ourselves into thinking, oh well, this is good enough. Maybe that's what I deserve. Maybe
Mm.
we make up all these things, excuses,
Sure. Yeah,
to
yeah,
try to
yeah.
realize like, no, you're worth what you paid for.
That's so good.
You put in the same work and time as the car before you who said
Yeah.
for it, and not just that, you paid your money.
Yeah.
But sometimes we have to realize that our trauma would try to coach us into thinking that we deserve less than,
That's so good.
and deserve us, and to make us think that we only deserve partial
Yeah, 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 yeah.
of
That's
what
so
others
good.
are experiencing. And so when we're thinking, when we are going through that, we have to be very conscious and saying, I've coached myself into believing
Yeah.
that I only deserve a portion,
Yeah.
when we actually deserve the fullness of it. Because it's kind of like, well, God only gave us a portion of what it means to be a believer. When it's like, no, we walk in the fullness of what, so that means that we walk in all of the attributes of what it means to be a
Absolutely.
believer.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
God, if God gives us a gift, He's not gonna give you just a
That's so
portion
good.
of it. He gives the gift.
The
Now the
fullness
working of
of it.
the gift is up to you.
Yeah.
You got to do the work. So
Yeah.
you owe it to yourself. God has given you the gift. Now work
Absolutely.
the gift. Work the fullness of the
Absolutely.
gift. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that's a lot of why kingdom believers don't receive all the benefits that God has, because of that traumatic perspective that says all I have is all I ever have, and I thank God for what I have, and what I have is enough, and if He don't do another thing for me, I'm all right. And it's like, okay, you sit right there with that. But
Yeah.
my Bible says that the cattle on 1,000 hills belongs to Him.
Yeah.
My
I don't
Bible
want.
says
Yeah.
that.
Because that's like me, like God. Why is it that we try to convince ourselves of that? When it
Yes,
comes to that
yes,
value, it comes to that value.
I
Like
love
it
that.
doesn't. That doesn't. And I think that as believers, we have to challenge what we have been taught.
Yes, absolutely,
That
absolutely.
horrible doctrine, and we have
Yeah,
to challenge that. Because
yeah.
I'm sorry, if God says that He's gonna bless me, why am I thinking there's gonna be a portion of the blessing instead of not the fullness
Right.
of it? You know.
That's so good.
So,
Yeah. And it's almost like we try to put God into the box of man, right? Because, like you said, the absence becomes a defining moment for us, where we feel like that moment of absence defines my value. It
yeah,
defines what I should expect. It defines what I'm worthy of, instead of saying, no, I'm worth more than this. Where is the rest of what I paid for? Where is the rest of what I deserve? Right.
yeah,
But I think that there's a level of false humility, that is placed and programmed in us, not just through the church, but through just even our culture,
mhm.
right? That teaches us about our lack of worthiness. So that's really good. I love that. How do you begin to unravel which parts of your identity were shaped by presence versus absence?
I always say a lie is gonna always tell on itself.
Mm,
And of course, we can always now, and I always talk about in the book, I talk about before Christ, and that's my story before Christ. And I think that a lot of it, so if I was to say before Christ, the unraveling, I didn't know it I would even experience, because I felt, I was so convinced that this is it. This is just what it's going to be. But
yeah,
eventually a lie will always tell on itself.
yeah,
And now of course with being a believer, I know that compare it, if it doesn't say it in the word, if this is not what the word says, it's not what God says, then I have to unravel. So that's almost like that is the axe to cut the ties and to unravel whatever the lie that I have been wrapped in, the generational curses I have been tied in, all those things, the dysfunction I have been convinced myself of. And so his word is the axe,
That's good.
And so I use that to where like, no, now as a believer, that don't work.
Yeah.
And I think that we have to be okay with challenging and unraveling, like you saying, like the unraveling of the things that we learned. But that's the hard work, because sometimes though that trauma, it's a liar.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's a liar.
Oh yeah.
But I always say that when we are in a pit, we can't see anything, the true things of it. We can't see what's really in that pit. When someone is stuck in a well, they don't realize that what else was stuck in that well with them. They just became reliant on that something was there, but it's in the pit with me. And so when you shine the light on it, you begin to see what's actually in this pit, and realizing that this thing that was in here with me can't offer me anything.
Yeah.
Because it's still in the same form of darkness, and it comes from the same form of darkness that I'm in. And they're trying to keep me stuck in here. So I became reliant on it because it made me feel as if it was keeping me safe, and it was, but honestly speaking, it lies to you. I always say that our moments to where we are so convinced that, we are telling the truth on ourselves, but honestly speaking, it's impossible. You're in a pit. And you don't realize that you are in a pit. And so anything that's in a pit with you is going to lie to it,
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. So you also have another chapter called The Anger You Carried. And I just want to hit this real quick and we're going to end for tonight. How did you bring your anger before God? And what did that process of surrender look like in prayer?
A lot of it was like, God, why? It was really, God, why? Like, why? Like, why? How? Why? All of that. Because I felt through it all, I know that he was with me. And I started, as I started to walk with God, because one thing that about my mother, she made sure that we knew God. And then once we got older, the relationship for me changed. So that's when I will say my mother did her best with making sure that we, knew that we believed in God, and then it was up to us to develop that and cultivate that relationship. But a lot of it was like, God, why? So I was very angry.
Yeah.
I was very upset. I was very hurt. Not looking for someone to blame, just with the normal emotions.
Yeah.
And so with my trauma, I think that was my first thing that I had to come out of. Like, that's why I behaved like that, because I was so angry. I was so upset. I was very, like my perspective of relationships. I call it like every snake gonna, show its head. Like, it was almost like there was an expiration date for every friendship, because I was handling out of my own personal scope of mistrust. And I had to really deal with that and dig with that and just go through the journey of that. And so it was something to where it took me, Jesus Christ, it took me a lot to just dig through and keep digging through and not giving up, not relenting until I saw change and also until I felt change and I felt the breaking. And so and then it moved me into loving myself.
Yeah.
And so once I knew that forgiveness was key, I walked into understanding the value of self and loving myself myself from where I came from and what I experienced. So
yeah. No, and I mean, oftentimes we don't realize, but forgiveness is not just about the other person, but it's more so about us. Forgiveness releases us.
Yes.
It releases us. It says, you owe me nothing. And when we find ourselves in a place of forgiveness, then we can actually find ourselves in a place of freedom into the expectations of what God has for us. Because we always
Yeah.
think that man's going to give us something, or man can shut something down for us, or man can stop something.
Yeah.
It's just how we've been wired, right? That
Yeah.
trauma. But when you come into forgiveness, you realize this is a God thing. Can't nobody stop me. This is a God thing. As long as I partner with God, I'm going to have all that he says I can have.
Yeah.
So what would you say to someone who doesn't realize they're angry, and what are some subtle signs they should look for?
Um, I think when you are looking to identify what you're experiencing, I will always say don't trust yourself. Don't trust yourself because you have been one to maybe been relying on yourself in a sense.
Yeah.
But I would say always find someone else that's going to give you the truth and help you walk through what you're experiencing. Because a lot of what I experienced, and I talk about how I didn't realize how much I was holding, and I didn't realize all of the character traits that was going on, and how trauma groomed me. It's almost like
Yeah.
and it's so confusing, it's so dysfunctional, but
Sure.
you have to realize like how much trauma grooms you.
Yeah.
And it's like you cannot be groomed by something that doesn't wish you well, you
Wow.
know. And
Yeah.
so I had to realize like my immediate response towards anger was always first and all those things. I had to really like dig deep and realize that hey, something else is happening here.
That's
And I will
good.
all I so because I was a fighter. I didn't want to fight, but I was qualified to fight. It was like
Yeah.
there was no okay. You want to fight? You don't know what you asked for because in
Right.
the fight I would take on all that emotion that I was
Yeah.
holding on to because my father wasn't there. And so
Sure.
a lot of people say when they say like you black out, I do really believe that individuals have the ability to black out when they are in that moment
Oh yeah.
because you are not. It's not the person that's in front of them. It's that trauma. It's that experience that's giving them the energy and the
Oh
strength
yeah.
to fight. And so
Yeah.
that's really what it was like. And I had to realize like this is just that it became so much. It became bad. Like, and I think of course as I got older, it just turned into more so like I'm not gonna fight you, but I will hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
lack of empathy, lack of
Yeah. Yeah.
empathy,
Yeah.
not caring about others. Not like
Sure.
it was so bad. I said one boy crying. We were at school and it was like that boy was crying all day. And I said a couple of words to him. I said I could fight you, but I'm not. And it was like the fight was worse. My words rather was worse because he was just
Yeah.
crying all day. But I had to realize like, Dad, my words can do this. But because
Yeah.
I was, and I always say like, our trauma, it teaches us so much, but it also teaches us to be not caring for others.
Sure.
And it also, and the thing about it was, I was like, well, if I could just say a couple of words to hurt your feelings, then I'm gonna do this. I could save myself some time. And it's
Yeah.
like, who in the world?
Where'd that come from? Right?
Where did that
Who
come
put
from?
that in you?
Like, who put that in me? And
Yeah.
my trauma, because
Yeah.
I felt like the pain and the afflictions that
Sure.
I was carrying. I couldn't tell you why I wanted you to feel this, but I
Yeah.
wanted you to feel it.
So validated in it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's why I said that trauma will groom you into making thinking that you would, and it did. It made me think like, well, I'll just do what I need to do out here and everything else, and not care about anyone or care about others' feelings.
Sure.
And that's why I always say like the best thing that we can do as people, not just as believers, is to always deal with our pain and deal with our past and deal with our trauma.
Yeah.
Because we'll realize that we'll see ourselves in a different light. Because the light that you see yourself in right now is not the truth. And I don't want to where this is written by a believer, but at the end of the day, this book is for mankind, for people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
To become a better person.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you will see how much God can take your story, and you will fall in love with the aspect of God being the Father and taking and redeeming your story. And from there, that's what grew me into like, just it'll be random things like God be like, I love you. And it was like, I'll never forget the first time I heard that. And it was like, wait, what just happened?
Yeah. Yeah.
Early on in me walking with him. And it was like, he affirmed me in his love.
Yeah.
And of course I'm like, well, what I did before, it made me, it's almost like duh, he knows what you did. But even in that, you don't realize like how your mind makes you go have try to
Yep.
hurry up and be like, no, 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 I don't deserve that. No,
Yep.
no, no, I'm not qualified of that. Like
Right.
God loves
Yeah.
me. Like God
Right.
can love maybe my neighbor, but me, you know.
Right.
So seeking that and receiving that was something that was new for me, and I think at the moment it happened right when I was my first time in my first son. When I was pregnant with my firstborn, and I was like, maybe it was just the hormones and everything else. But at that time, it was so much going on emotionally for me because
Sure.
I was still a baby Christ, you
Mhm.
know. And so I always say God doesn't do anything by mistakes, but on purpose. And so all of those
Mhm.
emotions and everything else, I knew that He wanted me to deal with, and as I was producing life, as I was giving birth, And so it was something that always amazes me, um, with God and how He did everything that He did.
Yeah, how he orchestrates. He's so intentional.
Yeah,
Even with the parts of us that we don't like, or the parts of our story that we don't like, God
yeah,
still uses all of that to make us better. And that's just the goodness of God. So as we
yeah.
wrap this up, if you could look every reader of this book, Broken Pieces, in the eyes, especially the ones still trying to gather what life shattered, what would you say to them in this moment?
Be kind to yourself. Be kind. Be patient. This is not something that I just turned 40, you know. So this is initially maybe 30 years in the making, and it's still evolving. It's still, growing. So this is something that will never end, but there's a different perspective about it because I'm not writing this from a perspective of I'm being bound by it,
Yeah.
but I recovered from it and I recovered
Mm.
well, and I'm on the
Yeah.
other side of it. And so, be kind to yourself, be patient, and know that you are qualified to make it to the other side. Whatever your story has you in right now, wherever you came from, whatever it was that your trauma that you experienced, you're qualified to make it to the healing side.
Yeah.
You know, so we call it the Dorothy, the yellow brick road, and everything.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
You so qualified, it's the golden road. And
Yeah.
and so you have to realize like you're gonna have what it takes, but take it one day, 1 minute at a time, and don't
Yeah.
rush it.
I love that. Well, I celebrate you for pushing this out. I celebrate you for, just this milestone of ministry going to another level, just becoming and blossoming and blooming into all God has put on the inside of you. And I know that there's probably going to be a part 2 or a part 3 to this as you do more. But I'm just can't wait to read the book, can't wait to journey through it and just experience the testimony of your journey. And so I'm honored that you chose me to do this for you tonight. This has just definitely been a pleasure, and I hope that everyone that hears this conversation will go to that little website on the bottom and drop your pre-orders, grab your book, get the pre-orders, and it will be released in. I'll have you say exactly when the release date will be.
August 1st, the first of
Yes,
the month. So
the
I know
first.
you got $10 in your bank account on the first, August 1st. So listen, save your coins. It's $10. And just stay tuned for more. Just stay tuned for more. I'm excited. This is going to become something bigger than what I expected, but
Yeah,
I have to go ahead and obey God because
yeah,
this is becoming like my inbox and everything else and text messages like, please keep going. I need this, and so I owe it.
sure.
I owe it to those who are continuing to reach
Yeah,
out and doing my portion. So pray for me as I
yeah,
go as I
definitely,
go on this journey and
definitely.
adapt to this and everything else.
Yeah, and I definitely see this going bigger, larger than just a book. So I am pushing you all the way, celebrating you all the
Yeah.
way. I'm not gonna get the prophesying on here, but
Listen, go ahead. Yeah.
will not.
Yeah.
But I definitely see this going bigger, larger, and being more impactful than just a workbook, a notebook. It's going to become greater things. And I just see God blowing this up for you because of your perseverance, because of your resilience, and because of just Him rewarding your faithfulness to completing a thing. You know, a lot of us start a thing, but we don't complete it. But for the fact that you completed this hard task and you produced something so beautiful, I see God just blowing on it and making it so great in the earth. And I'm honored to be your friend. I'm honored to be a part of this journey. And this is just night 2, so there's night 3, I think, right?
Yes,
So there's
yes,
more. So just
yes,
every night,
more.
just tune in to this station, to this channel, to this web page, Facebook page. I'm sorry. And yeah, and get more about the book, understand more about Mrs. Chiquitha Mayberry, the great author that she is. And we are so grateful for everyone that tuned in tonight. And I'm gonna let her have her final words till we say good night.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining back in and staying, tuned and everything else. Like Nick was saying, just stay tuned, stay consistent, keep me in prayer because this is something this is for us. This is for everyone, not just the little girl, but everyone that's just trying to deal with those traumas. And so, but thank you. I can go on and on, but I'm very appreciative and I'm so grateful for all of your support. But I will see you guys tonight with someone else. Yes.
Tomorrow night. Yes.
Tomorrow
So
night.
like, share, follow her on all the social
Yes.
media platforms. She got something every day for us. So just stay tuned. I love you, sister.
I love you
And we're
too.
going to say good night.
All right. Good night, guys. Have a great one.